and I'm back from my short holidays. I'm glad last week Munir and the team did a good job. Also, Solomon was here, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, so good, good. So today's topic is life in the spiritual world, wandering spirits, and um, we will have a discussion about it. Just for your information, wandering spirits are those spirits who are not incarnated. In a very brief introduction here. So, good evening, Miss Gibbons. How are you, my dear?
Hello, good evening, Stevan. Hello, Charles. Good evening, everyone who's been listening to us and who will watch us afterwards. Hope everyone is well and looking forward to our talk today, which is a subject that normally people don't talk about, but is very interesting and is important for us to learn because it means that we will understand how our life is in the future, once we leave here and go back home to our spiritual world. So looking forward to this and hope everyone is well and enjoying. Those who are here in England enjoying the summer. We've been having 2 or 3 days of sun, which is fabulous. So, you know, good evening, everyone, and welcome.
Wonderful, wonderful. Bonsoir, Charles.
Bonsoir, Steven. Hello, everyone. Very happy to be here again with you tonight. It's quite heavy thunderstorm here. Hope it will connection will stay stable and the power supply as well. But okay, so far so good. So let's try to explain a little bit this life in the spiritual world, where we will not have so many contingencies as we have in this material world.
Great, great, great. So, wow, our friend Maria Vastostas is here with us. So, hi, my dear. I hope you're okay. We're missing you here in Ireland. A long time we don't see Maria. So, I hope everything's going well with you, my dear. Okay, so first things first. Let me show our video today. Let's share my screen. There we go.
Spirituality is the knowledge that brings awareness on the existence of life beyond this physical realm. So, if we understand that there is something else, we can understand many of the phenomena that we observe and many times cannot be completely explained by the physical theories, by the science that deals with matter only. So spirituality goes beyond and can give us a more complete explanation of everything we see around, of the universe that surrounds us, of so many phenomena that remains unexplained by the physical science. On the other hand, as spirituality can help us to understand the phenomena in the physical life, science is evolving so rapidly. We see, especially in quantum physics, is penetrating a world that we didn't even knew it existed. We will find explanations, probably that's what I believe in, what it's being developing in science, that will put together matter and energy and will probably provide more explanations about the spirit world.
Okay. Okay. Hey, good evening, Lou. Hello, VM. Good to have you here, my dear. And so, first things first, wandering spirits. As I said at the beginning, wandering spirits are those spirits who are not incarnated. So, in other words, are the spirits who are in the spiritual world. And today, we will discuss more about what is the life in the spiritual world, um, what's the difference, uh, what we're gonna have there. So it's kind of these questions people have in mind, and if you are the spiritism teachings, just read the spirit's book, and you will have all these questions, all these answers. So let me change different. Let me start different today. Let me start with Miss Gibbons. And my dear, at the beginning of our talk, you said nobody talks much about it. Why?
Well, I think one of the difficulties that people have of talking about it is because we have this taboo about death in our society. You know, if people seem to be, oh, they don't want to talk about it because oh, it's unpleasant or they fear it. But I think because also one of the reasons why something that's so natural, that's is something that no matter who you are, from the very poor to the very rich, to the most intellectual, to someone who doesn't have any knowledge of it, very much of anything in this life, this is something that everyone will go through because once we are born, there is only one tragedy really in life, that we are going to die. And in Spiritism, we learn that by the teachings of the spirits were beings that actually lived on earth before, and now they have reached a certain level of understanding and knowledge, and they're more enlightened, and they, you know, as a blessing, they gave back these books and teach us not to be afraid of death. And I think a lot of the fear and a lot of this kind of taboo that exists in our world is very much because, you know, we learned, and especially a lot of the traditional religions, they have this idea that if you are not a good person, you will go to hell. And if you are a very good person, you will go to heaven. And if you're not, you know, you be in limbo for in purgatory for a while, and then you'll, you know, you go to heaven after suffering a lot. And anyone who who has read Dante, you know, will sort of have an understanding of this. And it's, I think what I mean is, you know, at the beginning of the Divine Comedy, you know, the part of the Inferno, there is this thing written at the door, isn't it? Lasciate ogni speranza voi che entrate, leave all hope those who enter, because once you enter into hell, there was no redemption, there was no salvation.
Mhm.
And you know, as he goes through to see a lot of the experiences and everything, you know, and I think that a lot of, you know, as I said, a lot of religions said if you're not good, and if you think about all the rules and regulations that would allow you to go into heaven, almost nobody will actually go, because say for instance, if you don't go to mass on a Sunday, that's it, you're going to
I'm
go
going
to
to hell. Yeah.
so it comes in a way. So it doesn't matter. I'm going to hell anyway. So it doesn't matter what I'll do. Completely take your responsibility. And I think that's where the fear comes from. The idea that no matter, if you made a mistake or something, you've done something wrong, because part of our humanity is part of a learning process, if you like. We are constantly making choices in our life, good or bad. And sometimes we make poor choices. We know that, we make other people suffer, or we cause damage to something. And then, later on, if we understand things, we regret it and we wanted to redeem it. But, in terms of what nature religions teach, is that you are going to go to hell and never leave. And the whole process, if you think about it, is so absurd. How can God, that first of all, is teach you that he's good and loving and is a father, can condemn almost all of his creation to eternal damnation? Doesn't make any sense at all, to a loving God who is a father, Father in terms of his loving for us. He's not like a father, God is
Mhm.
not a person. God is an intelligence. That's how the Spirit teaches us, the supreme intelligence of the universe, the first cause of all things. And how can the supreme intelligence of the universe condemn his creation to despair and eternal damnation? Doesn't make any sense. And I think that's why people fear the idea of dying. But once we understand that there is no such a thing, of course, there are infernal places in the spiritual world. There's no denying it. But then there are good places and not. But I think one of the things that is important is that we will go into the spiritual world once we leave mortal coil, as they say, our physical body, where our thoughts are. So if we had a life that we committed crimes, that we are constantly thinking and how to harm other people, how to get advantage over others, and how, we can make money in other people's misery by selling drugs and all that kind of stuff, you will go where all the people are. And I think that's one thing that I find very interesting, because once we go to the spiritual world, to quote André Luiz, the spirit that gave us a number of books and was through the Chico Xavier, he says, once we go to the spiritual world, we face the mirror of our conscience. And I think this is so important, isn't it? And I always remember that André Luiz actually, after he makes the point that you have to face whatever we've done, and it's not God punishing you, it's not anybody punishing you, it's your own conscience. He says, oh, maybe it would be better, if somebody had sent you out to the other place, to hell, because then you wouldn't have the responsibility. And I think that's the whole thing. We have the responsibility for what we've done. And we will only be judged by ourselves. And, in the Spirit's book, in question 625, when Kardec asked the spirits, because they said, you suffer when you infringe God's laws. And he said, where are God's laws written? And the answer from the Spirit says, in your conscience. So it doesn't matter, we are born with a compass of, north to choose good and bad, to choose good. And if we choose bad, we're already born with the knowledge of it. So this is very important to understand, that God does not punish. There is no punishment, but it's our own conscience that judges us. And I think when people understand that there is hope, and even if you go to, if I've done something really bad and I go to a place that is really very sad and diabolical and whatever, it doesn't mean I'm going to be there forever. There is redemption. I can move away from that situation. I can change things, I can redeem things, and I can learn different, I can make different choices. And I think that's where it comes with the process of reincarnation. That's nothing more than giving us an opportunity to readdress the wrongs we have committed. So there is no eternal damnation, there is always redemption, there is always love, there is always we can become enlightened spirits. And we know that, sometimes we know of spirits that were, really not very good, were quite bad when they were here, but they now enlighten the spirits, and they are the ones who are guiding us, who are helping us, because they've learned. So through our own process of learning and developing and becoming enlightened, we'll move away from those dark places and from the sad places in which our own actions took us. So I think that's something very important to and while we're there, we are also learning, but we come to this world, we are born here to learn all the lessons that we need to learn to improve and to get better. So there is always a process of development, redeeming, and becoming better until we become spirits of light. And I find this extremely hopeful, and it's a wonderful thing that Spiritism teaches us, that there is hope for everyone, and of course, Jesus, who brought us the teachings that could guide us, and he's called the Redeemer, through his teachings, to trying to follow his teachings, we are redeemed through his love as well. Yeah, that's it. I don't know if I answered the question or went far too
Oh,
long.
yeah, sure. Okay, and Charles, how it is the spiritual world? What are we gonna face there? Houses or that field, green field with butterflies flying and happy days, or we go to the hell? Because I have a friend, he used to say to me, I would rather prefer go to hell because all my friends gonna be there, and if I go to heaven, I'll be alone. So, how is the spiritual world? You're in a mute, my friend.
Hey, Silvia explained it quite well already. One fundamental law which is governing the spiritual world, it's the main law which is governing spiritual world, is the law of affinity. The one who looking like will join together, and you told it. I prefer to go to hell because all my friends will be there. Okay. So we group, the spirits are grouping by affinity. Okay. Now, of course, this person who said that, no, all my friends will be in hell, so I rather go to hell. Okay, maybe he will not be in hell alone, but it's not a good place to be. Well, okay, Spiritist body of knowledge says hell does not exist as an absolute place. It's just a relative situation in some difficult positions. Okay, so again, it's a question of conscience. Silvia told it very well. Where is written your conscience? Where do you feel if you have done something good or not? Who will judge you? It's our own. We will judge us ourselves. It's a own or self judgment, so to say. So depends on us. I mean, if you want to be in a good place, let's have a clean conscience, having doing good, having doing our duties, having helped wherever we could, having worked in our betterment to become every day a little bit better than the day before, and having then good conscience. And if we have good conscience, okay, we will come to a place with a lot of people having good conscience as well. It's as simple as that. If we have bad conscience, it will be the other way around. If we have did a lot of things, no, let's forget it. Wipe under the carpet. This unfortunately doesn't work in the spiritual world. We are somehow naked in front of our own conscience. There are no masks. All the masks are collapsing. There is no hypocrisy, because all our thoughts are fully transparent, because
Mhm.
the thoughts are the language between spirits. The good spirits who look at us, they know immediately what we are thinking. So hypocrisy does not exist. I think it's very good, isn't it? Because let's take this as a fact, and let's behave, let's work in order to have a good conscience. Let's do good, and the passing, the coming back to the spiritual world will be smoother. So it's everything in our hands. It's just let's use your will in the good direction. Okay, so that's it. Interestingly, there is this movie No Solar. I think a lot of people have either read the book or seen the movie. There we can see a little bit how it may happen. When you see the first moments of André Louis in the spiritual world. Well, it's not hell, but it was something a little bit looking like hell. But luckily, it's only the first chapter or the first minute of the movie, because then he can manage to go out. He has been rescued. He has understood exactly why he landed there. And he managed to work to change in himself in order to merit a better place to be, which is the so-called no solar, spiritual home. So that's basically it. We are eternal spirits which are temporarily in a physical body, incarnated on the earth, as Silvia explained also very well. So sooner or later, we will be freed from this physical body and go back home to the spiritual world. And the situation there is totally in our hands. It's only depending on what we are doing, good or bad. The state of spirit in which we will leave this world will be have the strong influence on our situation afterwards. It's as simple as that. But let's not, as Silvia told, I need to stress this. You know, this question of evil, of hell, of Lucifer, and whatsoever are inventions of the leaders of some religious movements, which are using these strong images to induce fear in the populations, so that they can come and say, okay, if you follow my advices, if you give me some money also and whatsoever, you will be saved. So it's a pure manipulation technique. But Spiritist body of knowledge is absolutely opposite. We don't want money of anyone. We don't want to manipulate anyone. We just want everyone to become autonomous and to understand by himself where his real interests are. So this is why we are bringing these teachings, and clearly saying it may contradict a little bit traditional religions. No, neither heaven nor hell exist as an absolute place to be. Hell is, André Louis was in so-called hell between brackets at the first moments after his passing away. And then maybe he went to heaven, which is no solar, you see. So these are relative places, more or less difficult, depending again on our state of conscience.
Good. And what do I expect when we go there? There are houses, there are cars, there are beds to sleep. How is the spiritual world? Like, Sylvia.
You're asking me?
Yeah.
Well, yes. Well, the spiritual world it depends where you are, isn't it? In some of those places is darkness. is very gray. There are caves, there are all sorts of things. But in a better place, I think it's interesting, because we're talking about Nosso Lar and everything. And I think it's important to understand that in the book that's called Nosso Lar, which is our home, that's a spiritual home. This is actually the spiritual city that sits on top of Rio de Janeiro in Brazil. And he was from there, so he went there, that part. So every city, every place where there is a population, there is a spiritual city above it or whatever, it is in a different plane. So it's not like above or below, but it's in a different dimension where the spiritual world is. And so the way he describes the city, there is houses, people live in houses. There are a lot of buildings, a lot of departments where people, there are schools. There is, a kind of hierarchy of government that have rules of ordinance for where people live and how they live, how they have to behave. Now it's interesting that in Nosso Lar as well, which is the first book of a collection of 16 books, and 14 is about the life in the spiritual world. He talks about people taking like aerobus. There is a bus that flies over the city and takes people. But the most advanced people can actually travel with their own thoughts. The advanced spirits will move by their thoughts. And it's very interesting that you see this in Harry Potter.
Yeah.
Yeah, the ones who can't, or the too young, they have to have the bus. And it's, that's how André Luiz describes the life there. Some people take the bus, and as they evolve and the spirits become more and more enlightened, they move their thoughts anywhere in the universe with the the speed of a thought, which is wonderful. I'm looking forward to I am looking forward to getting there. So they have houses where people live. They have hospitals for some of the people who, sick or they died. They were very ill, and they are taken care of in some hospitals there, and that's where André Luiz actually goes and work. And he was a doctor when he was on Earth, and actually a very well-known doctor, researcher, scientist as well. But when he went to the spiritual world, he went to sweep the floors, because all the knowledge he had on Earth wasn't enough for him to do the work there. So he had to go through and learn from the very beginning until he could do the things that a doctor does. So this is very important as well, because I think sometimes we need to learn humility in our professions. We need to learn that we can serve wherever we are. So but there also, as he described, there are beautiful places, beautiful gardens. There is a place where people play music, and you go there and you listen to music and rest. Because I think one thing as well that Charles was saying, about that heaven and hell, and there is no such a place like that forever. Because and when you first learn this, it's because you've been listening to so many things before, that the spirits, the more advanced they are, the more enlightened they are, the more they work. So when you think in terms of heaven, it's not someone sitting there playing the flute, or the lute or whatever it is. They work very, very, very hard. So the more they're advanced, the more they learn, the more they work, the harder they were. So heaven is not somewhere to sit and have a holiday, but just to work really hard, much harder than in the other lower places. And that's another dream that goes with heaven, doesn't it?
Oh, no, of course, yeah.
That they actually work and really hard, which is wonderful. And I think one thing, that we learn through learning about the spiritual world and the places that they are there and everything, um, we learn how. Um, how really important it is for us to learn from here, to learn to serve, to learn to be more charitable, more understanding, and sometimes especially nowadays, it's so hard because everything seems to be, it's like an avalanche, coming on top of us, and you can almost lose hope and become despondent. But we must not feel like that, because everything is part of a process of transformation, and it's one day our earth is going to be as peaceful as the city, say on top of London or Dublin,
Mhm.
or where Charles is. There is much better, and people are kind to one another, they help one another, and we have all these different places, so we can learn that wherever our conscience is where we're going to be, but we are going to be helped. There are other places and I think I find it very interesting as well, because sometimes in literature, the spirit tells us that they teach everywhere, everywhere. We have the spirits book, which are wonderful, and where everything is focused and concise on that, but the teachings everywhere. And when you read, Dante, and the places he meets, I mean, when we read the books of Andre Luis, we find many of the descriptions from Dante, and one
Mhm.
example, I think you probably even know, and Charles, I'm sure,
Um,
the city, the wind, when the spirits are caught in the wind. He tells the story, Dante tells the story of Paolo and Francesca da Rimini, that they are caught in the wind. And only every now and then they see each other. And, people who read, I'm sure, knows why they are there, because they killed a brother, whatever. But they only need to ask forgiveness to be able to come out of the wind. And Andrea Luis describes this kind of places, in the books. So I find fascinating. But there are nice cities, there are places where you can go and see beautiful paintings. And we also learn that most of the beautiful paintings that we see in museums and art galleries here on earth are copies of work that's already in the spiritual world, isn't it? So I find it fascinating as well. So there you are.
yeah, yeah. Well, I think I need to wear glasses because I'm trying to read the small letters here, and I need to approach the screen here. So
Well, I
I
need
hope
mine.
I hope in the spiritual world we don't need to wear glasses anymore. Yeah.
Yes.
Uh,
You are born again, you have good eyes in your next incarnation.
yeah. I'm trying to read it here. Said, oh my gosh. So, Luviam saying, I love how Andrea Luiz describes the nature there, the flowers, parks, lakes, and the care of nature. Yeah, it's good. It is good. Um, and Charles, uh, how is we talk about why we avoid to talk about it. We know how it is the spiritual world. Now, how is the life there? What are you gonna do there? Sitting,
Yeah.
waiting for the judgment, having fun, going to the parties. How is the life in the spiritual world? What are we gonna do there? What's our, let's say, daily tasks while we are in the
Occupation.
spiritual world?
Yeah. I mean, just to complement a little bit what Silvia said, no, Solar is on top of Rio de Janeiro somewhere. Okay, but no panic. There are also spiritual astral cities above London or Paris or wherever. There are everywhere. Nobody is out or has to go take a visa or you know, even the witch need a broom, huh? But the spirits, they don't need a broom anymore, huh?
Yeah.
To travel. And for instance, a reference is Shadows Lifted from Death, huh, from Harry Burbidge, which has been published by I think a British Union of Spiritist Societies. So it gives, by the way, an interesting information, huh, which was uh, written by this medium Harry Burbidge, more or less at the same moment as Chico Xavier. So independently one from the other. Huh? It was just before WW2. And it's describing a little bit different from No Solar, but with a lot of points in common. In common. And there is also a similar one written in Switzerland, Was uns erwartet, by Beatrice Brunner. It was a little bit later, but Chico Xavier was very little known, in particularly in the German-speaking area of Switzerland in the early 70s, because the first translation of No Solar was in the 80s. So these books are also giving us the answer to what you are saying, complementing the instruction we got on Kardec. So, of course, at the beginning, waiting for the last judgment, no, the judgment is normally before. What happened to André Louis? So he was in this dark areas and was rescued. So whilst he was in this dark area, he had not a lot of things to do. If not, discover the reality and think, analyze why I'm there, and then at a given point in time, calling for help, making a prayer, elevating his thoughts. And that was when they came to rescue him and to bring him to No Solar. And but in No Solar, we can see, there are so many activities for the wandering spirits. They are working differently than we are our work on Earth, because they don't need money to. They don't need food. They have not, as I told at the beginning, all these material contingencies as we have on Earth. Nevertheless, they continue working spiritually, assisting other spirits, rescuing some which are in these dark areas temporarily. They also come back to Earth in order to assist people they know, or other people, or maybe spiritist groups, or communicating through mediumistic meetings, bringing the teachings. There are many, many things to do. Also inspiring some artists, as Silvia also explained. So it is very, 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 it's more or less what we see here on Earth, and much more. They are doing much more things that we have some difficulty to imagine. So it's not neither the eternal fire where you cannot do anything, nor this eternal contemplation aside of God, where basically you do nothing else. No, the spirits are very active and they are working continuously. Okay. So that's more or less the answer to this question. And the first point also that we have told today is interesting. Why is it so taboo? Taboo, because we are somehow, how do you say that in English? I think to be between a rock and a hard place, or something like that. From one side, you have the religious people. If you don't do what I want you to do, you will go to hell, and blah, blah, blah. We are threatened on one side. And on the other side, you have the science saying, well, this is all dreams, imaginary religions, just pure beliefs, absolutely no reality, and so on, rejecting also. So we are a little bit in this in between. And this is the one reason why most of the spirits which are coming back to the spiritual world, they have no information. They don't know where they will land, what will be the life, what they shall do. Huh? And well, spiritists know a little bit better, I would say, albeit they don't know everything. Huh? Kardec really made a huge work in publishing Heaven and Hell. So the title of the book may be a little bit frightening, but it's not. It's really an excellent book who shows the situation, all this diversity of situation that the spirit can find themselves after passing away, depending on what they have done during the last incarnation, depending also on their state of conscience, as I've told you before.
Great.
And I think one thing as well that we didn't talk about, although you said, oh, about your friend who want to go to hell, but we meet our families. We meet, our families, members of our family who have already gone to the spiritual world before us, our parents, and, our friends, the friends that we had maybe in this life, friends that we had from other lives. They are there waiting for us as well, I think this is important to realize that. And especially, when we have a loss of loved ones that died, and we feel so sad because, we miss them. And the idea that we are going to meet them again, we're going to be with them, talking to them, it's really very, gives you a sense of hope and kindness and loving, that they will be waiting for us. Because when we are born, we have our parents, our friends, and everything, the family waiting for us. It's the same thing when we go back. And I think this is very, very important, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is. And my dear, in connection to what you have said, is there a time I can stay for the eternity in the spiritual world, or is there a time, okay, you need to incarnate, you need to go back? Because let's say, I assume for those who have a very struggling incarnation, one of their thoughts will be, I will never want to go back. I want to go to this spiritual place and I want to stay there and I will never want to return here, you know? So, is there a time? Can we stay forever? How it works?
It depends on the spirit. It's very much how we choose, but we cannot stay in the spiritual world forever. Always, we can't, unless in the level that we find ourselves, we need to reincarnate, and we be reincarnating in this because we need to learn a lot of intellectual things, and we also need to learn a lot of moral things, virtues that of love, of charity, of understanding, because one thing supports the other. Some spirits will stay in the spiritual world for quite a long time, for whatever reason. Some of them are afraid of reincarnating and all that, but it will come a point that they will have to reincarnate. They will have to. And the spirits who are already here and have gone, they have advanced further from the knowledge that this planet has to offer. They will reincarnate in another world because life exists everywhere in the universe, absolutely, completely and totally populated. It looks empty for us, but it isn't. There is all kinds of different types of lives everywhere. So we can reincarnate in another planet. And our planet, Earth, is developing, is progressing, is changing. I think it's going now to a great transformation in which we're changing. And eventually, like everything, a solar system will disappear, a sun will go, no, supernova or something, or dwarf, and the spirits who are located here will have to move on to another planet, so this will happen. And but until we reach a level of enlightenment in which the spirit has progressed everything that you can progress, they do not need to reincarnate anymore, and they will stay in the spiritual world, you know, forever if they want. But I think one thing that you always read and always learn, especially in the books of Andrea Luiz, is that sometimes the spirits that are of great light, they choose to reincarnate to help us. It's very common that a mother, who have a child that is still in trouble on earth, even though they have already reached a certain level of light and everything, they will choose to come back to earth to help members of their family who are behind, or something, or if spirits of light will come and will help the planet to develop, to move on. And I think, that's my own opinion, but I don't know how Charles feel about it. I think, the period of Renaissance, the Renaissance, when where the greatest painters, the great artists, the great philosophers, the greatest, scientists that were born, there were always spirits of light who were born and completely changed the planet, wasn't it? For a period of time, we had a great transformation of culture, a way of seeing things, nature, and everything. And I think also, again, during the period of the Illuminists, the great philosophers was mostly in France, and they brought scientific knowledge. They brought, a completely way of looking at the world and seeing things. And there was a completely transformation in politics, in religion, in everything. So every now and then, I think there are groups of spirits who are born, who are very elevated, very high in degree, and they come to help us. And I think this is happening now. There are many, many spirits. I saw the other day, there's a little child just born, and people film everything nowadays. And he was 3 days old, and you could see he was just born because like a little skin was still, all crumply. And he had already turned to the others and was trying to walk, and making noises. And the parents were there, so is he doing it? And they were filming it. So I think, this is one of those who are going to, who have come back. And you have young children yourself, don't you, Stevan?
Yeah.
And you know how much more advanced your children are now than you were when you were young, and the other children. So these spirits are coming now to help us. So gives us hope as well that not everything is lost in this madness that we're living through. There is lots and lots and lots of forks of light. And so the spirits will reincarnate, and because they want to help us, and some will have to because they need to learn new lessons, and that will be compulsory for them.
Good.
So,
Good.
great.
Okay, Gilson da Gama wrote to us, very interesting topic. The Spiritist literature has shown us that there is plenty of I think of work in the spiritual life. Always ways of advancing as spirits, serving the spiritual and physical worlds.
Yeah. And I think one thing that's interesting, in what you're saying, we, many people here on earth, and some of them are too here, were exiled, from another planet to this planet, weren't they? Because, their planet was developing, was moving on, and they were holding back because they had wars and everything. And they all went they were sent to earth when it was very primitive, not only for them to, be away from, because they were doing something wrong, but they could help the spirits were here on earth. So in a way, if you think about, the legend of Lucifer, quite a few of us are Lucifers
Yeah.
because we were sent here. He's not just one person, one being, but many of us who are still is still around trying to learn better lessons. So it's great, though.
I think
It
you're
is.
fully right, Silvia. The Earth is not the home for angels.
Definitely. Not even Lucifer, though. Mind you, some of us are. So, oh dear.
I remember having seen a person in one of the lectures which said, I do not want to reincarnate. Never, ever I will reincarnate. So I had, okay, but why did you decide to reincarnate then? Because you are here. Huh? And she said, no, never, ever again I will reincarnate. Huh? So this is up to the free will of everyone. It can take centuries, thousands of centuries, even, says Kardec.
Yeah.
Until this person sees, okay, all my friends, my family, and so on, they reincarnated, they progressed, and I did not progress as quick as they. So this person will, even after a long period, depending on the persistence of the denial, understand that if this person wants to evaluate to progress as well, at his evolution level, which is ours, the best way is to incarnate. That is how we evolve. Silvia told it also very well. At a given point of elevation, we don't need to reincarnate anymore. But we are not there yet. We still have some work, some to do in order to reach those level of evolutions.
Yes, and also, I mean, some people are actually, there is a compulsory thing as well. They have to reincarnate, don't they? They cannot be, and it's for their own, it's to
For their
help
own
them.
sake, own sake,
Yes, exactly. Yes.
Luviem asked, she made a very good statement, and we need to talk about it. We are also a sort of wandering spirits every day when we fall asleep.
Not really.
Uh,
Don't.
So when we sleep, of course, it's our spirit is getting temporary during the period of the sleep, at least, gets free from the body. But it's as Lou VM said, it's a sort of because there is a difference between in the spiritual world between an incarnated and a discarnated spirit. The incarnated
yeah.
spirit has a kind of a rope connecting to the physical body. And as soon as, for instance, somebody entering the room where you are sleeping and waking you up, the spirit is coming back to his body. So it's not free as a discarnated spirit, which doesn't have a physical body anymore.
Yes, I think, yeah, I don't know if we could actually call that wandering because, as you said, we still connected to the physical body. So we're not really in the spiritual world. I mean, we are for a while maybe released. Our spirit is freer from the body and can go, but we are still connected through the silver cord to the physical body. So I don't think we could call us wandering because we would not have completely freedom in the spiritual world because
Yeah.
we still attached to the body. And in case of, situations that we know that spirits, you go and depending on you get a held there and then you die, then you'd become wandering. But I think while you're still connected to the body, we don't have the freedom of the spiritual world. We can go but it's limited, I think, what we can do there. And as Charles said, it's different, isn't it? And it can actually talking about André Luiz again, he describes very clearly the difference between the incarnate and the discarnate people. When he saw is different, physically different, the body, the spiritual body there. So it's a good
Yeah,
idea, Lou. By the
yeah,
way, can I say something very quickly to Maria? She says, God bless you all. So I'd like to say, God bless you too, and everyone that's listening. Thank you for that.
good, good. So, Charles, your final remarks.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of people, they don't care. No, I don't want to know what happens when I will die. Let's live as much as I can to make profit out of this period of incarnation. Okay, it's right. But since we know, as Silvia told at the beginning, that with 100% probability, rich, poor, black, white, woman, man, or whatever, we will have to go back there. So I think it's quite interesting, as if we know that one day we will have to travel to a given country, to study a little bit about this country and to prepare ourselves for this travel. Of course, we should not live with having this permanently in mind, but being prepared the day when it comes, it will help that travel. That's clear. But of course, let's make use as good as we can from this opportunity we have being incarnated in order to progress, because main purpose, I would say even the only purpose of the incarnation is to enable our souls to progress. So this is the most important that we have to keep in mind. We are incarnated to progress, but we will. It's for a given point in time. We can return through the reincarnation later if we need. But it's there is one thing which is very important where we have 100% probability to go, and this is why it is worth to look a little bit about it. And this hope we could clarify a little bit today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, yeah, yeah. And you, my dear Gibbons, what's your final remarks?
Well, I mean, it's just, what Charles said. Try to find out a little bit about how things are. He gave the idea of when you go to a country, you read something about it. And the most important thing that we all go through, we don't. So, if anybody would like to read the Spirit's book, which is a really good makes you really understand how life in the spiritual world is and how life is here, and it really shows where we've come from, where we're going, and what's the purpose of our lives here. And life in the spiritual world can be beautiful, can be a blessing, because as we are saying, they're still doing research, they're still doing paintings, they're still doing music, the spirits continue working and developing and doing new things. And that's some actually asked to be reincarnated so they can continue their work here. And also some scientists, who have started work here, they asked to be reincarnated so they can continue the work they started. So there is a lot of things, and there is no need to fear, absolutely no need to fear life in the spiritual world, the death or anything. Everything is a natural, normal process. And it's interesting when you go to countries where they have ancient cultures, you see this process very naturally. They have in drawings, they have, like in Lebanon, in Baalbek, you see some things, and you see like life, the circle of life. And in Palmyra, in Syria, you see the eggs and everything, like, breaking and starting again. So it's only in our culture that we seem to be afraid of dying, and we shouldn't be, and there is no need to be. So it's a natural process that we go through.
Yeah, it's always tricky for us, and at the same time, uh, we want to to see it. It's something we always want to avoid, but we are keen to see it. You know what I mean? So it's I want, but I don't want.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah, I want
that
to
there
see it.
is.
Yeah, to see it, you need to die. Oh, but I don't want to die,
You
so I
don't
don't
want
want
to
to see
die,
it.
yeah. I mean, there is that song of George Harrison, isn't it?
Yeah,
Sweet Lord, we say, I don't, want to be with you, and I want to go with you. And I thought, oh no, we all want to go, but we want to stay a little longer.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's the famous catch-22.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
Okay.
So let me pop up here our next topic for next week. So next week, 7th of August at 9 p.m., Emancipation of the Soul. It's a good topic, and if you have any questions, please prepare it and share with us to talk about it next week. So, Emancipation of the Soul. And I want to say thank you all for your time. Thank you, Maria Tostes, Luviem, Gilson da Gama, Lili Maia, all those were with us today. Thank you, Charles. Thank you, Silvia, for your time. And I'll
Okay.
see you all next week.
God
So,
willing.
God bless.
thank
Bye,
you.
everyone. God bless. Keep safe.
Cheers. Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.